Radio 77 WABC.
WABC New York and 107.1 WLIR Hampton Bays.
It's the 77 WABC News Hour.
Talking the news with Noam Laden.
All the news you need to know with Joe Nolan, traffic, Justin Ellick, sports. And now,
Talking the news with Noam
on 77 WABC.
Good morning. This is James Flippin filling in for Noam Laden on this February 21st. It's Friday. Mostly clear with a low near 21 this morning. Wind chill values between 10 and 15 degrees. Wind gusts as high as 26 miles per hour. Here's the 3-day 77 WABC weather forecast. Later today, sunny with a high near 33. Wind chill values between 10 and 20 degrees. Breezy, gusts as high as 31 miles per hour later. And then tomorrow, Saturday, less windy, sunny with a high near 38. Sunday, mostly sunny, a high near 44. Nice to see the 40s in there. And by the way, we do see a high in the low 50s by midweek next week. That's Wednesday, so that's something to look forward to as well. But for now, 19 degrees in Boonton, New Jersey, 22 degrees in Babylon on Long Island, and 23 degrees in Midtown Manhattan.
The top 5 at 5.
Our top 5 headlines here. It's going to have a little bit of a Governor Kathy Hochul theme, as Governor Kathy Hochul is holding on to Adams, but she's trying to keep the mayor closely watched. 6 upstate New York corrections officers have been charged with murder. And meanwhile, Governor Hochul has deployed National Guard members to state prisons amid an ongoing strike, and a judge has issued a ruling. Long Island native Kash Patel has been confirmed as the 5th director in the FBI's history. And the Trump White House has removed Haitian migrants' temporary protected status. New York Governor Kathy Hochul deciding not to remove New York City Mayor Eric Adams from office, but she is attempting to put limits on his power. Hochul says she's troubled by the allegations made against the mayor.
Not just the initial indictment, but also the more recent allegation of a quid pro quo with the Trump administration. So
by now you probably know the deal here. There was a charges levied against Adams back in September, basically claiming that there was a pay-for-play scheme involving the Turkish government and that a Brooklyn construction firm had helped with some of these straw donors make small enough donations that they're able to get matching funds from city taxpayers, and basically a campaign finance violation type of thing, but also some bribery allegations in the sense that maybe Turkish officials had upgraded flights for Adams in exchange for getting certain things done, including a official consulate building in New York City that had FDNY approval issues, and those kind of got pushed through. So anyway, Hochul watching all of this as the Trump Department of Justice has issued that the charges be dropped against Adams. Judge Dale Ho still needs to decide whether or not that whole dismissal can go through, but Hochul does have the ability to remove Adams as per the state constitution of New York. But Hochul says the will of the voters precludes her power to remove Adams. She is proposing legislation to create a special inspector general, and it would manage the city's affairs and give the city council speaker, city comptroller, and public advocate independent authority to take legal action against the federal government.
The state inspector general will be able to direct the New York City Department of Investigations. And the mayor will only be able to remove the Department of Investigations commissioner with the approval of the state inspector general. But the whole of city government should not be reliant on City Hall for legal cases where the people of the city may be under attack by the federal government.
Yeah, Hochul says New York faces a great threat from Washington.
The Trump administration has said is already trying to use the legal jeopardy facing our mayor as leverage to squeeze and punish our city. The president's already trying to weaken our public transit system.
Yeah, Hochul, of course, referring to the Trump White House's move and decision to cancel congestion pricing by pulling its federal approval. 6 upstate New York corrections officers are now facing murder charges in the death of an inmate. That was caught on body cam footage. The 6 officers charged with murder and 3 others accused of manslaughter for not stopping the December attack. They were arraigned after a special prosecutor unsealed charges yesterday. Robert Brooks was killed during what's been described as a vicious attack inside the Marcy Correctional Facility. The state has released some body cam video, and that was around the time the special prosecutor was appointed. It appears to show officers restraining, kicking, and beating Brooks and more. All the officers had bail set at $100,000 or less. A New York State judge is ordering state prison guards to end a strike deemed unlawful. This comes as Governor Kathy Hochul has deployed more than 3,500 members of the National Guard to several prisons across the state, part of an executive order that also granted additional overtime to other guards still on the job. By Wednesday, correction officers at roughly 30 state prisons had hit the picket lines, causing visitation to be canceled at several facilities. The governor said she's ordered her team to continue negotiations with the union representing the prison guards, even though contracts don't expire until next March. The U.S. Senate has confirmed Kash Patel as the next director of the FBI.
The yeas are 51. The nays are 49. The confirmation is confirmed. The yeas are 51. The nays are 49.
We already heard this one.
Confirmation is confirmed.
Okay.
Senators Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins were the only Republicans who voted against Patel. Ken Delanian is in Washington, D.C.
If you look at his public statements in the past, he really focused on the idea that the FBI was politicized, that he needed to root out bad actors within the FBI. But today he's looking forward and talking about going after criminals and terrorists.
I'm Lisa Taylor.
Patel is a Long Island native. He's been critical of the FBI in terms of its bias toward protecting elements of established government, or what some call the deep state, or just the establishment itself. For many conservatives and Republicans, they hold resentment toward the FBI for its seemingly politically motivated role in investigating so-called Russia-gate and elements of January 6th, 2021. But California Senator Adam Schiff, a Democrat, says Patel can't do the job and won't protect the public.
He will misuse the resources of the Bureau. He will weaponize it against the president's political opponents rather than protecting the safety, the public safety of the American people.
And some Democrats say they're concerned about Patel's qualifications and his potential loyalty to President Trump. He did receive a recommendation from the Senate Judiciary Committee in a narrow 12-10 party line vote last week. The Senate Judiciary Chairman called Patel the right man at the right time, and he was officially confirmed then last night as Trump signed off on it. Former FBI Director Christopher Wray had resigned, and Patel now serves a 10-year term as FBI Director. And the Trump administration is ending the temporary protected status of Haitian immigrants. It was back in June of last year when former President Biden announced Haitians would receive temporary protections due to the island's violent domestic turmoil. But Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem has announced those protections will be ending. WABC News Time, 5:09. As Mayor Adams is dogged by calls to resign and dealing with the ongoing threat from Governor Hochul and her ability to fire him, he's still on the job, and an effort is being launched to improve public safety in an area of the South Bronx. And this is known as the Hub. The Adams administration has announced a multi-agency operation aimed at improving the quality of life at the major commercial center along Melrose Avenue. But reporters didn't want to talk about the Hub.
Are you concerned about any limits to your power would stop you from running the city like this?
Thank you. It's ridiculous. Nothing about the wrong. Thank you, guys.
Going to be announcing this afternoon sanctions on your administration.
The Hub, led by the NYPD, it's part of Adams' Community Link initiative, which has already responded to more than 1,200 complaints per city officials, while also having conducted more than 1,200 operations. Mayor Adams says they'll work to address substance abuse, mental health issues, homeless outreach, sanitation, and other quality of life issues in the Hub. A federal judge says President Trump's mass firings of government employees can continue for the time being. Multiple labor unions recently filed a lawsuit trying to block the administration's layoffs of thousands of probationary employees. And then yesterday, the judge denied that bid, saying the federal court was not the appropriate avenue for their lawsuit. Despite the denial, the judge indicated he held some sympathetic views in terms of what these unions wanted. The federal judge arguing that many of Trump's executive orders have caused disruption, even chaos, in widespread quarters of American society. The U.S. is reportedly refusing to co-sponsor a UN resolution backing Ukraine. This 3 years after Russia's invasion. House Speaker Mike Johnson adamant during an interview at CPAC, the Conservative Political Action Conference yesterday, that his side of Congress won't be working on any more funding for Ukraine.
Look, there's no appetite for that. What do you think? No. Yeah.
We got our answer there?
We have to bring it to an end. And I can tell you that our European allies understand the necessity of this as well. It's drug on too long.
The UN resolution backs Ukraine's territorial sovereignty and demands Moscow withdraw its troops. The U.S. is also objecting in part to a Group of Seven Nations statement planned for next week that condemns Russian aggression. The refusal does highlight the growing rift between Ukrainian officials and the U.S. since President Trump took office, but it's also worth noting that President Trump has been adamant that he's pushing for peace here and aiming to break the ice between the U.S. and Russia, and also obviously potentially achieve some sort of ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine. Kentucky Senator Mitch McConnell will not seek re-election next year. The Republican lawmaker made the announcement yesterday that he's retiring, and that speech on the Senate floor came on his 83rd birthday. McConnell was first elected to the Senate in 1984, and he broke the record for longest-serving Senate party leader before stepping down in November of last year. Israel's military says one of the 4 bodies handed over by Hamas yesterday was not a hostage. The bodies released included 2 children, ages 4 and 9 months. Another was supposed to be the children's mother, but forensic analysis confirmed it wasn't her. The Israeli Defense Force says this is a very serious violation by Hamas, and of course it's worth noting how kind of tenuous and thin this all is in the ongoing ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas. In other words, if any of this doesn't go well, we could quickly see a return to the fighting. These hostages who died and their bodies returned were kidnapped October 7th of 2023 during the Hamas terrorist attack. And also in Israel, there are no reports of injuries after 3 buses exploded near Tel Aviv. Police calling it a suspected terror attack. Explosive devices on 2 other buses failed to detonate. The explosions happened in a parking lot south of Tel Aviv, and there are reports all the buses were empty when those bombs went off. But officials halted all buses, trains, and light rail in Israel while checks got underway for more issues. Back in the city, accused healthcare CEO killer Luigi Mangione expected back in court today. It'll be Mangione's first court appearance since his arraignment following his arrest for the alleged killing of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson last December. Thompson gunned down in the early morning hours outside of Hilton Hotel in Midtown. The judge today could set a trial date during that appearance. Meanwhile, United Healthcare is offering some employees buyouts.
The offer comes amidst a turbulent year for the insurance company, which posted record revenue while dealing with a massive cyber attack and the murder of its CEO, Brian Thompson, in December. The buyouts are targeted at employees in the company's benefits operations unit. Those who decline the offer will either keep their jobs or get a comparable position. I'm Michael Kastner.
A man who prosecutors say was a member of the Crips gang has been indicted for allegedly orchestrating 2 murders in New York City. Reuben Moy, also known on the street as Nut, has been charged in 2 separate murders, one in 2011, one in 2015. And prosecutors say he more or less terrorized neighborhoods in the Bronx as a figure connected to the Santana Block Crips set. The victims were apparently connected in some way to other gang rivals. The gang war led to the inadvertent deaths of Philip Richards August 4th in 2011 and Michelle Cox March 4th, 2015. Again, neither of them were actual active participants in gang rivalries. Acting U.S. Attorney Matthew Podolsky says these vicious crimes may have occurred years ago, but the office and our partners don't forget the victims of violent crime, and we will not stop pursuing justice. The federal prosecutors there working with the Department of Homeland Security and the NYPD. WABC News Time, 5:15. James Flippin filling in for Noam Laden, and we're going to turn to the sports desk and talk to Justin Ellick. So, Justin, I guess we couldn't get it done against Canada last night, huh?
No, but we took them, the distance.
When it's OT.
Went into OT. It was a good gritty hockey game, and I think, listen, the better team won at the end of the day.
Yeah, and if Canada can't win, then what else do they have?
Pretty much, man. If we're gonna make them the 51st state
there
here,
we go.
Flipping, then that'd be one hell of a hockey team, by the way. My God. We're going to be losing to anybody.
Seriously.
We will start with that NHL Four Nations Championship game out in Boston. Connor McDavid scored just over 8 minutes, just over the 8-minute mark, I should say, of overtime to give Canada a 3-2 victory over the United States as the North American rivals turned what had been a tune-up for the 2026 Olympics into a geopolitical brawl over anthems and annexations as much as international hockey supremacy. It was the second time an NHL international tournament was decided by an OT goal. Darryl Sittler won it for Canada at the 1976 Canada Cup. Nathan McKinnon and Sam Bennett also scored for Canada. Jordan Binnington stopped 31 shots, including the last 20 in a row on the same ice where he helped the St. Louis Blues win the Stanley Cup as a rookie 5 years ago. Brady Tkachuk and Jake Sanderson scored for the Americans, and Connor Hellebuck stopped 22 shots in regulation and 3 more in overtime. The U.S. has lost all but one game against Canada in best-on-best international play, dating to the preliminary round of the 2010 Vancouver Olympics. The lone victory was in the Four Nations round robin on Saturday, a game so good it turned last night's sequel, into one of the most anticipated international hockey events in decades. So congratulations goes out to Canada, the future 51st state, on their big victory there. What? Yeah. In the NBA, regular season league play returned for both the Knicks and the Nets at the Garden. Karl-Anthony Towns had 32 and 18. Jalen Brunson added 22 and 12. And the Knicks edged the Chicago Bulls 113-111 in overtime. Miles McBride finished with 22, while Mikal Bridges had 13 and 10 for the shorthanded Knicks, who improved to 36 and 18 in their first game following the All-Star break. Coming up next for them, they'll visit Eastern Conference leading Cleveland tonight at 7 p.m. Speaking of those very Cavaliers, they took care of the Nets last night in Brooklyn. The final score 110-97. Cam Johnson led Brooklyn with 18 points. Keon Johnson scored 16 points. Trendon Watford finished with 13 off the bench, and Zaire Williams and Jalen Wilson each scored 10. Up next for the Nets, they'll travel to Philadelphia for a Saturday matinee against the 76ers. From MLB spring training, we are now underway with those exhibition games. The Yankees get going with live game action this afternoon at 1:05 p.m. against the Rays before the Mets get their spring training schedule underway tomorrow against the Astros. That'll be a 1:10 p.m. first pitch. That's your Sports James. I'm Justin Ellick on 77 WABC.
And 77 WABC News Time, 5:20. I'm James Flippin, and I'm filling in for Noam Laden this morning on our 5 a.m. news hour. A new report from the Washington Post claims President Trump will soon be taking over the U.S. Postal Service. WAPO says Trump is expected to issue an executive order as soon as this week to fire members of the USPS governing board and place the independent mail agency under the control of the Commerce Department. Board members tell the Washington Post they plan to fight the executive order and will sue the White House if Trump tries to remove board members or change the agency's independent status. All of that said, the White House says they're planning no such executive order. The Senate is adopting a budget resolution after pulling an all-nighter to get through all the amendments being tacked onto a GOP proposal. The vote was 52-48 along party lines. The so-called vote-a-rama began last night at the Capitol and lasted until the early morning hours. Senate Democrats filed dozens of amendments in opposition to the budget plan. The resolution clears the path for Republicans to pass $340 billion in funding, including $175 billion for border spending and immigration enforcement. Republicans say they want to extend tax cuts for households of all incomes to prevent a tax increase. SpaceX CEO Elon Musk, busy these days with DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, but he's also calling on NASA to deorbit the International Space Station as soon as possible in a bid to focus on missions to Mars. In a statement on X, Musk said the station has served its purpose. The ISS is scheduled to be decommissioned in 2030, but Musk said he's recommending to President Trump that it come down in 2 years' time. The matter is complicated by some other countries and organizations involved in the ISS, including Russia. Musk's comments came a few hours after he had gotten into an online war of words with a European Space Agency astronaut who disputed a Musk claim that 2 NASA astronauts have been stranded on the space station for political reasons. Back in New York, Con Ed has proposed rate hikes, and dozens of union workers rallied in Union Square yesterday in response to that, saying the proposed rate hikes will do a number of people who are already dealing with high rents and an ever-increasing cost of groceries do a number on the people who are already facing it. Yeah, anyway, okay. Con Ed wants to bump electric bills up an average of over 11% and gas bills over 13%. The utility says the hikes are needed to maintain and upgrade its power infrastructure. Governor Hochul has already asked the State Public Service Commission to reject the request to hike rates. In Connecticut, a psychiatric board is considering whether or not to grant conditional release to a man who killed a person and ate some of his body parts. Tyree Smith said voices told him to kill the homeless man and eat his remains in 2011. Smith was later found not guilty by reason of insanity by a 3-judge panel. And after years of treatment, he began living in a Waterbury group home in 2023. Some Republican state senators are outraged by Smith's possible release, saying that even considering letting him go unsupervised is mind-boggling. Former NFL punter Chris Kluwe has been a radical leftist online for years, active on Twitter in the past. Maybe he still is. I'm actually not sure. Probably Blue Sky, if anything. That's the liberal Twitter. But Kluwe has been arrested after an anti-MAGA protest that he engaged in with a speech at Wednesday night's Huntington Beach, California City Council meeting.
Kluwe was protesting the council's approval of a plaque commemorating the 50th anniversary of the city's Central Library. One part of the plaque says magical, alluring, galvanizing, and adventurous, which to some spells out MAGA. In his speech, Kluwe, who played for the Minnesota Vikings, compared the MAGA movement to Nazism, then walked into restricted space and toward council members, where he was met by police officers. Kluwe was released 4 hours after his arrest. I'm Daniel Martindale.
And the Trump administration is clearing out all the migrants it sent to Guantanamo Bay. The Homeland Security Department said yesterday that the 177 Venezuelans being detained at the naval base were put on 2 passenger planes yesterday morning and sent to an airfield in Honduras, where another plane will take them back to Venezuela. One Venezuelan migrant was then sent back to a U.S. facility. It's not clear if the U.S. plans to send additional migrants to Guantanamo. Last night, President Trump hosted a reception at the White House honoring Black History Month, and during the event, Trump said he received more votes from Black Americans than any Republican president ever. He was joined on stage by golf legend Tiger Woods, as well as several prominent Black political figures, social media personalities, and activists who have been vocal supporters of the president. Many on more left-leaning news networks have noted in a snarky way that the celebration comes as the administration has been cracking down on diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, DEI, with Trump issuing an executive order last month ending the federal government's DEI programs. Following that order, the Defense Department came out with guidance declaring Identity Months dead. But, of course, a ceremony at the White House is quite different from official guidance at the Pentagon and for the military at large. An appeals court has ruled that President Trump can't end birthright citizenship for now.
The U.S. Constitution says anyone born in the United States becomes a U.S. citizen, an amendment that Trump has been trying to overthrow with an executive order. When a Seattle judge banned that executive order, the Department of Justice filed an emergency request to lift the ban and end birthright citizenship. On Wednesday, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled birthright citizenship will remain the law while the case moves forward, with arguments slated for June. I'm Mark Mayfield.
It's probably something that's slated to go all the way to the Supreme Court, and basically what Trump is saying is he wants to limit birthright citizenship to cases in which one parent is either a green card holder or a legal citizen of the United States, because the argument is under the 14th Amendment, it says anyone who's not subject to laws or statutes of any nation is what's supposed to be covered under the 14th Amendment. So in essence, if someone came here from Honduras or Venezuela, then they're already subject to Honduras and Venezuelan law. In Hollywood, a new Martin Scorsese film is igniting a bidding war. The acclaimed filmmaker is attached to direct a Hawaii-set crime drama starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Leonardo DiCaprio, and Emily Blunt. Johnson will play a Hawaiian crime boss who battles rival factions for control of the island's criminal underworld. His character is reportedly based on a real figure who dominated Hawaiian organized crime in the 1960s and 1970s. The project reunites Scorsese and DiCaprio, who partnered on the director's previous film, Killers of the Flower Moon. New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy wants to implement school cell phone bans statewide.
Governor Murphy visited Woodbury Junior Senior High School in South Jersey on Wednesday and noticed how attentive the students were.
Performance, their social skills, just the impact it has on them when they're not in school. Pretty darn impressive.
The school district implemented its own ban this school year, and students told the governor they're learning better now without the phone distraction. Phones are locked in pouches and are returned at the end of each day. I'm Lisa Ritchie for 77 WABC News.
WABC News time coming up on 5:30. When we come back, we'll look at the investigation, the federal investigation into California's high-speed rail authority. Also, a New York activist for 9/11 first responders headed to Washington next week. And down along the Jersey Shore, beach replenishment projects are in focus during these bitter winter months, and the IRS is laying off some 6,000 employees. It's the WABC News Hour. James Flippin filling in for Noam Laden.
The 77 WABC News Hour.
Talking the news with Noam Laden.
On 77 WABC. Talk Radio 77 WABC. It's the 77 WABC News Hour.
Talking the news with Noam Laden.
All the news you need to know with Joe Nolan, traffic, Justin Ellick, sports. And now,
Talking the news with Noam
on 77 WABC.
Good morning. Noam Laden has the morning off. This is James Flippin. It's Friday, February 21st. Here's the 3-day 77 WABC weather forecast. Mostly clear around the tri-state this morning, rising from our overnight low, which was near 21. Wind chill values between 10 and 15 degrees, and wind gusts are as high as 26 miles per hour. Later today, sunny, a high near 33. Wind chill right between 10 and 20. Breezy, gusts as high as 31 miles per hour. Tomorrow, Saturday, less windy. Sunny with a high near 38. Sunday, mostly sunny with a high near 44. That's nice to see. We even do see a high in the low 50s by Wednesday of next week. Right now, 19 degrees in Boonton, New Jersey, 22 degrees in Babylon on Long Island, and 23 degrees right here in Midtown Manhattan. Out on the West Coast, California's high-speed rail authority says it welcomes a federal investigation into its use of funding after U.S. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy announced a compliance review yesterday. Susan Shelley is with the Howard Jarvis Taxpayer Foundation and says the review is long overdue.
Now what you have is the Trump administration is back. They're picking up where they left off. They're going to do a compliance review to see if this is the deal that was promised to the federal taxpayers.
The state agency responded on social media, emphasizing it's been audited over 100 times, claiming that's with full accountability. Shelley says the investigation will break down and track where all the time and money went into this project.
The compliance review is going to include site inspections. They're going to go out there and take pictures in hard hats of empty land, and they're going to look into the project activities. They're going to look into the financial records.
And she believes a potential cut in federal funding could derail the project.
In this letter from the Federal Railroad Administration to the High-Speed Rail Authority, they said from now on, effective today, you proceed on this at your own risk.
A New York activist for 9/11 first responders is headed to Washington next week to fight what are looking like 20% cuts to the World Trade Center health program.
Those cuts are planned by the Department of Government Efficiency.
Shame on them. It's callous, it's mean, it's cruel, it's inhumane.
John Field, a construction worker from Long Island, talked to a New York City radio host on Thursday, saying the cuts to the CDC directly impact the program. He says 137,000 9/11 heroes, first responders and others, will be affected and that people will die waiting to get their illnesses certified. Field plans to meet with GOP senators next Wednesday and hopes for a sit-down with Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in an effort to get those DOJ cuts reversed. I'm Tammy Trujillo.
Earlier this hour, we told you about New Jersey's potential cell phone ban for schools. Well, authorities are investigating the theft of $15 million from Lakewood Public Schools. Lakewood's mayor, Ray Coles, says they noticed the transfer of funds from the school's account this past weekend and contacted law enforcement. Mayor Coles says parts of the stolen funds have been recovered. The theft comes after Lakewood Schools secured an emergency $65 million loan from the state last week so it could keep paying its teachers and staff. It still needs the remainder of a $104 million loan it's requested. The winner of a $1.3 billion lottery ticket says $104 million. I can cover that. In New Jersey, this is beginning the process now of collecting the money. The Mega Millions jackpot ticket sold last March at a ShopRite in Neptune, and New Jersey lottery officials say the winner has started the process of collecting the prize by submitting the winning ticket. The winner is taking the lump sum payment of $537 million before taxes. Down along the Jersey Shore, beach replenishment projects are in focus here during the winter months. Wildwood Crest has withdrawn from a major beach project that would replenish 5 Mile Island. The withdrawal comes over concerns the project would not supply enough sand for the upcoming summer season. Advanced planning for the $40 million project was considered nearly complete, but officials don't expect the work to begin until next year. Wildwood Crest officials have pointed to concerns that sand for the project will need to be borrowed from a beach already used by beachgoers. And then on LBI, the Surf City Borough Council is lobbying its congressional delegation to make sure the next federal budget includes enough money for beach replenishment. Council members say the funding's been put on the back burner for projects because of funding cuts, but they say without the funding for the work, there's a greater danger, of storm damage to the people and the property. WABC News Time, 5:39. James Flippin filling in for Noam Laden. The IRS is laying off some 6,000 employees. Tax experts like Sarah Spodek are encouraging Americans to send their returns early and electronically to avoid any long-term delays.
Made an error or your return has been rejected, you could expect extensive delays because people are going to be redeployed after these cuts.
Spodek is Quinnipiac School of Law's tax clinic director. She says the IRS has already been dealing with some staffing issues since the pandemic that have led to long service delays.
I think that getting help via an individual or through correspondence is going to be very difficult over the course of 2025.
The IRS will be primarily letting go of probationary workers as part of Trump White House's efforts to reduce the federal government workforce. It also comes as multiple reports say that Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency is looking to get access to the IRS system, the data, as the IRS has increased its staff under the Biden administration in an effort to increase audits. SpaceX CEO Elon Musk calling for NASA to deorbit the International Space Station as soon as possible in a bid to focus on missions to Mars. The ISS is already scheduled to be decommissioned in 2030, but Musk says he's recommending to President Trump that it come down in 2 years' time. A New Jersey woman has been caught up in 2 legal battles over her emotional support chicken.
Lori Smith says her 5 chickens provide emotional support and therapy, but her homeowners association say the birds have to go. NJ.com reports neighbors are complaining about the chickens and have filed a lawsuit against Smith and her husband to force the removal of the chickens and coop from their 2.5-acre property. A judge ruled against the couple. However, they are appealing that case. The couple also countersued under the state's Anti-Discrimination Act. They're looking for a new home for the birds. In the meantime, they are paying a daily fine of $50 to keep them. I'm Liz Radabali for 77 WABC News.
Out on Long Island, Suffolk County police have questions about a murder-suicide in Islip following a couple who seemed happily married. William and Eileen Clifford had been married for 20 years. Neighbors say they were a quiet but friendly couple. And yet yesterday morning, the 73-year-old husband was found shot to death in his driveway, and his 68-year-old wife dead inside. Police say a sanitation worker found the husband, and that sanitation worker knew CPR, tried to help him, but it was too late. At this point, police don't know why Clifford allegedly shot his wife and then himself. There was no history of domestic violence. President Trump is backing Republican Representative Byron Donalds' likely bid for governor in Florida come 2026. Taking to Truth Social, Trump called Donalds a total winner, adding he would have a big voice and work closely with Trump to advance our America First agenda. Donalds has yet to announce his potential run for governor, but NBC News says he's been telling donors he will run for the seat that will be vacated by the now term-limited Ron DeSantis. Iowa has the worst bridges in the country. That's per a report from the American Road and Transportation Builders Association. It says the state has identified almost 15,000 bridges that are in need of repairs. Of the 23,000 plus bridges in the state, about 19% have been deemed structurally inefficient. Indiana Fever superstar Caitlin Clark is being credited for an increase in WNBA trading card prices.
For the first time, WNBA trading cards are worth more than NBA, and Caitlin Clark is being credited for a large part of the success of the cards. She is the Women's National Basketball Association Rookie of the Year and gets the credit for a series of sold-out WNBA games. A complete set of the women's WNBA cards is selling for an average of $1,200. The men's NBA card set is $800. I'm Monica Nelson.
An investigation is underway after a woman woke up alone in a closed Boston bar with no idea how she ended up there. The incident in question happened in September of last year when the woman called police after 2 a.m. and reported that she woke up alone inside a bathroom at the bar. The woman suspected that she'd been drugged by a contaminated drink, although her toxicology report revealed no drugs in her system. Management of the bar say staff have been retrained to check and clear all spaces before closing. Nikki Haley is going after President Trump over his comments on Ukraine.
Trump criticized Ukrainian President Zelensky's leadership as Russia's war in Ukraine reaches its 3-year anniversary. Haley, a former Republican presidential candidate and Trump's former U.S. ambassador to the UN, said the president's comments were classic Russian talking points and exactly what Putin wants. Trump also doubled down on his criticism of Zelensky later, saying he's done a terrible job of leading Ukraine. I'm Brian Shook.
ChatGPT now has more than 400 million active weekly users. OpenAI CEO Brad Lightcap posted the numbers to X yesterday and noted it's twice the number of users the artificial intelligence program boasted in August of last year. The company also announced that the number of paying users in the business sector has doubled to 2 million since September. WABC News Time, 5:45. Going to get the latest in sports here from Justin Ellick. So, Justin, are you a AI user? Do you get ChatGPT fired up every now and then?
Yeah, for sure.
Like to write an email or something like that?
All the time.
That's, I think, a popular usage of it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we have it now on Gmail. That's right. You can basically, if you get a long email, you can just click this little thing. It says summarize this email. It'll summarize the email for you in 2 seconds. Yep. So you don't have to read all that mumbo jumbo.
I mean, Aaron Boone can even use ChatGPT to fill out his lineup card this year.
Yes, he can. Yes, he can.
How's that for a segue?
That is a great segue. How about that? I didn't get to it before, but the Yankees have extended their manager, Aaron Boone. They agreed on a 2-year extension that'll run through the 2027 season. The team did announce yesterday on the eve of the club's Grapefruit League opener today. Hired before the 2018 season, Boone is entering his 8th year as Yankees manager. The contract would take him through 10 seasons. Guy's got to just win a championship. Obviously, he's up there in terms of winning percentage and all of those great regular season statistics. But if you're going to be the manager of the New York Yankees for 10 seasons here, you got to win at least one World Series. To the ice here in Boston, Connor McDavid scored at the 8:18 mark of overtime to give Canada a 3-2 victory over the United States as the North American rivals turned what had been a tune-up for the 2026 Olympics into a geopolitical brawl over anthems and annexation as much as international hockey supremacy. It was the second time an NHL international tournament was decided by an OT gold. Darryl Sittler won it for Canada at the 1976 Canada Cup. So congrats over to Canada, the future 51st state, on their victory. In the NBA, regular season league play returned for both the Knicks and the Nets at the Garden. Karl Anthony Towns had 32 and 18. Jalen Brunson added 22 and 12. And the Knicks edged the Chicago Bulls 113-111 in overtime. They improved to 36 and 18 in their first game following the All-Star break. Coming up next for the Knicks, they'll visit Eastern Conference leading Cleveland tonight at 7 p.m. Speaking of those very Cavaliers, they took care of the Nets last night in Brooklyn. The final score 110-97. Up next for the Nets, they'll travel to Philadelphia for a Saturday matinee against the 76ers. And, of course, from MLB spring training, as previously mentioned, the Yankees will get going this afternoon at 1:05 p.m. with their spring training schedule against the Rays before the Mets get their spring campaign underway tomorrow against the Astros. That'll be a 1:10 p.m. first pitch for the Mets. That's your sports, James, and I'm Justin Ellick on 77 WABC.
Oh, Canada, our beloved future 51st state. So before the sports and the traffic, we told you about the ChatGPT milestone, more than 400 million active weekly users for the popular AI service. Well, tech giant Apple has introduced its newest iPhone model.
The iPhone 16e will be available at the end of the month and features Apple's new C1 chip, the smartphone maker's first custom-designed modem chip that connects with cellular data networks. The chip will reduce Apple's reliance on Qualcomm, a company it has previously sued over the royalty fees it pays to use their chips. Apple is likely to roll out the in-house chips more broadly with its next-generation iPhones, which could launch later this year. The 16e is the latest version of what was previously known as the iPhone SE, a phone with less features than the standard iPhone. Its price in the U.S. will be $599. Ira Spitzer, San Francisco.
Meta executives are set to get bigger bonuses this year. The company behind Facebook and Instagram said Thursday that some of the executives could see bonuses of up to 200% of their base salary, up from the previous cap of 75%. The announcement comes after the tech company started laying off 5% of its total workforce and cut annual stock option distributions by 10% for thousands of employees. Shares in the company are up 47% over the past year. And Meta plans to build the longest undersea internet cable in the world.
The Facebook and Instagram parent company expects the multi-billion-dollar project to be completed by the end of the decade. The more than 31,000-mile cable will connect the United States, India, Brazil, South Africa, and other regions. About 95% of all global internet traffic is delivered on undersea cables. I'm Mark Mayfield.
Well, today is National Cherry Pie Day, and that's pretty good. Nothing wrong with a good cherry pie, but the weekend's almost here, and I think you should really hold out for what we're doing on Saturday, National Margarita Day.
We're celebrating National Margarita Day. 3 ingredients that create magic in a glass: tequila, Cointreau, and lime juice. That's the original recipe we've been drinking since 1948. Spirits and Wine Corporation Brown-Forman says collectively Americans drink about 185,000 margaritas every hour. They say the taste is balanced and sweet, but make no mistake, there's booze in it, so designate a driver. I'm Bree Tennis.
Oh, there's booze, all right. And if you're going to drink, you're going to eat. But a Long Island food pantry is closing its doors for good. Oh, come on, Lisa. Don't do this to me. Lisa! All right, well, we'll check back on that one in a second. Amazon has beaten out Walmart in quarterly revenue for the first time ever. The online retail giant reported nearly $188 billion in revenue during the fourth quarter. Walmart reported Thursday $180.5 billion in revenue for the same period. Walmart is still leading Amazon when it comes to annual sales, although Amazon is gaining ground. And in other financial news, truck drivers who haul cargo for the Port of Los Angeles are on strike.
More than 70 drivers say their employer, Southern Counties Express, is breaking its contract with drivers by switching from hourly pay to pay per load. Drivers also say weekly insurance premiums deducted from their paychecks have risen more than 100%. They say they'll stay on the picket line as long as it takes.
Day shift, night shift, don't matter how long it takes until the company respond back with something that we want to hear.
I'm Phil Hewlett.
And in economic data today, we're going to get the S&P Services PMI for this month, as well as the Manufacturing PMI, Purchasing Managers Index. And that's coming out about 9:45 this morning. And then about 15 minutes past that, the consumer sentiment numbers for February are due, as well as January's existing home sales. Federal Reserve officials say they're concerned about the impact of President Trump's recent tariffs in terms of inflation.
Meeting minutes released Wednesday reveal policymakers decided last month they'd need to see inflation decrease further before cutting interest rates, and they're worried about how tariffs could impact this process. The Federal Open Market Committee ultimately opted to hold rates steady during the meeting. The Feds made multiple cuts last year that totaled a full percentage point. I'm Tammy Trujillo.
All right, so we tried to play this one before. It didn't cooperate. Let's see. A Long Island food pantry is closing its doors for good.
The owner of the Pantry of Angels in Mastic says supply is running low and she can no longer keep up with the cost of operations. Lauren Foysett says the pantry will be missed.
It's unbelievable to see how many of the community members rely on this place to be here for food, clothing, friendship, even just to hang out when it's cold outside, and nobody kicks them back out.
Someone's taking over the thrift store portion, but the pantry that serves roughly 400 families a week is shuttering its doors after being open for just over a year. I'm Lisa Ritchie for 77 WABC News.
6 elephants are dead after a passenger train smashed into a herd in Sri Lanka early yesterday. No passengers on that train were hurt. It did derail, but 2 elephants were treated, and local media reports that around 20 animals, the elephants, are killed by trains each year in Sri Lanka. It boasts a population of about 7,000 wild elephants. Back in the States, in the nation's capital, another performer is canceling scheduled shows at the Kennedy Center. Impressionist Sylvia Tremor Morrison has decided to pull out of 2 shows scheduled for April 19th. The D.C. native saying on social media the Kennedy Center has historically stood for diversity, inclusion, and creativity. But she calls recent actions and policies at the venue disturbing and said the cancellation reflects a need to stand up for the values that elevate us as a society. So what's this all about? Well, ABC News says, and I'm reading here, that in the first month of his second term, President Trump has ousted the arts institution's leadership, filled the board of trustees with his supporters, and announced that he's been elected the board's chair unanimously. The center has since canceled performances by the touring children's musical Finn and a planned concert featuring the Gay Men's Chorus of Washington, D.C. So I guess that's in some way all upsetting to Sylvia Tremor Morrison. U.S. Senator John Ossoff is urging Washington, D.C. to send promised federal aid to Georgians impacted by Hurricane Helene.
I made hurricane relief my top priority,
says United States Senator Ossoff, saying that Georgia can't afford to wait long for promised federal aid.
After Hurricane Michael, it took Congress 8 months. We got it done in less than 90 days. Now it is urgent that the new administration get this disaster assistance to Georgia farmers and Georgia communities as swiftly as possible.
Wednesday, in a letter, Ossoff urging the administration to prioritize Georgia disaster relief assistance package, according to a survey by the University of Georgia preliminary report back in November, estimating that Helene's cost to the state's economy upwards of $5.5 billion in agricultural and timber losses. I'm Katie Gray.
Memphis Grizzlies superstar Ja Morant is the latest athlete to have his home burglarized. According to the Daily Memphian, his house was robbed of as much as $1 million in property December 19th of last year, and 7 Chilean men have been charged in federal court with facilitating break-ins at the homes of professional athletes in the U.S. The FBI complaint names Kansas City Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes, Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce, Cincinnati Bengals Joe Burrow, Milwaukee Bucks forward Bobby Portis, and players from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Grizzlies as athletes who have been burglarized. WABC News Time, 5:57. James Flippin in for Noam Laden on this 5 a.m. news hour. It's Friday, February 21st, and as we get to 5:59, we're going to turn to the executive producer of Sid and Friends in the Morning, Justin Ellick. Let us know what's going on today on the show.
Now, thank you, James Flippin. Friday, thank goodness gracious.
TGIF.
There you go. Indeed. We'll get you ready for the weekend in the right way with Sid and Friends in the Morning coming at you very shortly here. In the way of guests, kicking us off at 6:45, it's going to be our good buddy live from Israel, Yehuda Honickman. Obviously, the complications with the hostage return yesterday with the Bibas family and the Bibas mother not being included. And then you had the 3 explosions in Tel Aviv, the 3 bus explosions. So we'll get all of that from our buddy Judah at 6:45, right before Brian Kilmeade joins the program right around 7:15 this morning. Wrapping out the 7 a.m. hour, it's going to be KT McFarland. She'll join us for her weekly Friday morning hit with Sid. She's at CPAC right now, so she'll join us live from there. Curtis Lewa will hop on the program, making his first appearance since leaving the station here, I guess you could say, for lack of a better term, to run for mayor. So Curtis will be here at 8:30, right before Joe Tacopina makes his return to the program after after winning that trial with his client ASAP Rocky out in Los Angeles. We'll talk to him at 8:45. And in the 9 a.m. hour for the second day in a row here, we're going to have Anthony Cumia, I should say, formerly of Opie and Anthony. He'll be joining us at 9:15 in the 9 a.m. hour there. That's all coming up. Sid and Friends in the Morning on a Friday morning. James Flippin coming at you in just a few short moments.
All right, and Kentucky Senator Mitch McConnell says he won't seek re-election next year. The Senate's confirmed Long Island native Kash Patel as its next director of the FBI. And you heard from Justin, an update coming your way this morning with Sid amid the tenuous hostage deal between Israel and Hamas. Reports of injuries after 3 buses exploded near Tel Aviv. Police are calling it a suspected terror attack. And Governor Kathy Hochul says she's not kicking Mayor Adams out of office for now. James Flippin in for Noah Blayton on the 5 a.m. News Hour.